Joining us now is LA City Council member Nithya Raman. She is the councilmember for the 4th District. You also are the chair of the Homelessness Committee for the City Council. So you're sort of leading the city response on the homelessness issue, which is a challenging position to be in. Thank you for coming in. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm newly the chair as of a couple of months ago, and it's been exciting, especially exciting to be there in partnership with the new mayor. Yeah,
well, so let's talk about that. We know that she asked the City Council for $250 million for her Inside Safe program, $1 billion overall to fight homelessness. You guys now on agreement on that. That's a lot of money. There are some folks that are going to hear this and say, why is throwing more money at this problem going to make a difference? What's different this time? What is different now?
Well, I think the reality of where we are on homelessness right now in Los Angeles is that we are digging ourselves out of a very, very deep hole. We underinvested in shelter and housing for decades. We just started making those investments. We started with HHH a few years ago, and we're still building those units. Those units are finally starting to come online. But right now, we're actually getting to the scale at which we should have been investing in the problem 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The metaphor I like to use is, if we'd been making repairs on that roof the whole time, we might not need to be replacing the roof now, which is what we're doing, and it's very expensive. But it is what we need to do in order to be able to address the problem at scale.
One of the issues that we hear from, even from Mayor Bass, is all of the red tape and having to fight through the red tape and not being able to do things because of the red tape. And you have one council district. There are several council districts. What are you doing to overcome? Because I know you talk about the idea that your hands are sort of tied when it comes to you can only deal with this much when you need to be over here too.
Yes, and I think we need to address this red tape. Another big question is accountability. What are those dollars doing? How are we explaining what those dollars are doing to the people? But one huge issue is that we don't have coordination across the entire city yet, and that's where I hope we're going. What has been in existence over the last few years is really that we have 15 council districts and 15 different approaches to homelessness. There might be encampments that are on a city council district border or just over the border. A cleanup there, not coordinated with another district, can send people into your district. We need a citywide approach, a holistic approach that moves us all in the same direction. We don't have that yet. We don't have 15 different departments of water and power.
How do you get there?
What happened? How do we make that happen?
Yeah, I think we make that happen by building a system that's really effective at responding to homelessness at the citywide level. And I think making this investment with the mayor who's really willing to take charge and move things forward in an aggressive way, in partnership with her, we can really do that. I envision having something like a Department of Homelessness that can be really effective, that we give those responsibilities to instead of trying to do it in every council district on our own. And that's, I think, what we're going to be pushing towards.
How is it different now with Mayor Bass versus Mayor Garcetti?
Mayor Bass was elected with a mandate on homelessness. That is, and I think if Rick Caruso had won, he would have been elected with the same thing. Homelessness was the issue of the election. There was no doubt about it. And so that mandate has driven her work, and I think she's moving towards outcomes with urgency. And for me, as someone who's been in the building for a little over 2 years now, I feel like the urgency that I felt when I was elected is reflected in that building.
One of the issues, of course, are RVs. No matter where you go around Los Angeles, in different neighborhoods, you're going to see those RVs lined up, vans lined up along parks, and we're looking at some video here. Latest city count shows that 6,500 people are living in 4,000 RVs around the city. This brings up the issue of van lords, where people are literally renting out the vans. It's an unregulated industry. What are you doing to help clear up the streets and get rid of the RVs?
Well, we just actually discovered this problem when we started trying to get RVs that were in our district off the streets. We'd go through the efforts of going to the person who was living in that RV, working with them, and getting them into housing. Already a too long process that we're trying to shorten. And once we would do that, because they didn't have ownership over the RV, because it was being rented to them by, as you said, a van lord, we couldn't get that RV off the street and somebody else would move in. We're now going to be moving forward with legislation that will help us deal with people who own RVs, who are renting them out to people on our city streets, something that they should not be doing, in a very different way. And I'm hopeful that we can make those changes Often these RVs are in terrible condition. They're dilapidated. They're not the kind of living conditions we would want anyone living in anyway. We need to make sure that as we're housing people, we're able to move the RVs off the streets and actually address the problem over the long term, and we have to change our regulations a little bit to be able to do that.
People are also concerned about the issue of crime. We see the images out of San Francisco where a lot of businesses are leaving there. In your district, there's a Starbucks at Vineland and Ventura where the baristas have now said that they feel so unsafe with people coming in that they're going to do takeout only. They literally removed the chairs because they don't want people sitting there.
Right.
How does something like that happen, and how do we fix something like that?
Well, you know, I have so much empathy for those baristas. That was my first job, was a barista at Starbucks, and I understand what it was like to deal with customers that were unruly or, you know, hard to handle. And so I have so much empathy for their situation. This is why I am laser focused on ending homelessness. We have to address it encampment by encampment. Near that particular Starbucks, I inherited that area during redistricting. There was a gigantic encampment at the corner of Fruitland and Ventura. When I got that area in my district, within 6 weeks we had housed every single person in that encampment, and because they were housed, because we didn't just push them across the street, the tents haven't come back. We're doing a $3 million project along the river that snakes through Studio City. We raised that money from the governor, from Adam Schiff, and we're putting those resources into housing people. Dozens of people have moved indoors along the LA River throughout my district. And the reason why we work so hard to get people indoors and off the streets is precisely because we want the businesses in my district to thrive.
This is all happening. This is new, in fact, about that Starbucks putting up the sign saying you can no longer sit here because our employees feel unsafe. When you hear this, though, is this something that you will go there physically, since this is in your district, to this particular business and say, hey, what do I need to do?
Absolutely, and we do that kind of outreach every single day. We have a strong outreach program. We're connecting people who are in those businesses to the kinds of supportive services that they need. In the Los Feliz business area, for example, we fought for and now have an expansion of the Circle program. That means that if businesses have somebody who's experiencing homelessness in their business, they can call the police non-emergency line and someone will be dispatched immediately to come and help them handle that situation. That's when there's a nonviolent situation, when police aren't the right response. And so we're working in all kinds of ways to make sure businesses that have been bearing the brunt of this issue, they are our frontline responders for the failures of the city. We have to make sure that's not the case anymore, and I couldn't feel more passionately about this.
Well, Councilmember, we appreciate you coming in.
Of course.
It's great to talk with you. Obviously, these are such important issues, and hopefully this is first of many dialogues here, because there's a lot more we could talk about.
So much more, and I'm excited to come back and report back on the progress that the city is making on this issue, because you deserve that.
All right, Councilmember.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.